Hey guys, it's Tuesday, but I had to come on an hour early because I have an appointment out of the office at 3:30 this afternoon. So I just decided to go ahead and do it. Some of you that like to watch may not make it because you didn't know I was coming on an hour early. Um, but this week I was going to talk about how what it is that you need to do or not do when you're the subject of a restraining order. And before I get into that, it's more general in what we do because it's not always just a restraining order. Sometimes it's bond conditions uh, instead of a restraining order. Sometimes it is a temporary restraining order. And in more extreme cases, we get into restraining orders that last 4 years. But generally, uh, restraining orders, bond conditions, any type of restrictions are only issued in victim cases, right? So it can happen in domestic violence cases, robbery cases, aggravated cases, just anything involving a victim where there's some concern that the defendant knows the victim and has contact with the victim. And so what they want is for you not to have that contact with the victim. And so they will put conditions on you that you cannot have contact with the victim. And we see this the most in domestic violence cases, and it often causes a problem because if it's a couple and they tell you that you can't be around your wife or husband, where are you supposed to go? And so people often call complaining that the effect of the restraining order basically can make them homeless. And we understand. Most courts will allow us to have a hearing where we can go in and ask the court to remove the order if the subject of the order or the victim in the case is asking the court to remove the order. There are a lot of cases where an instance of violence is a one-off, meaning there's not a history of violence between these people, and so there's no need for a continued restraining order. Of course, the difficulty is if you get arrested today and you get issued a temporary restraining order on your way out of jail, no, I can't go into court tomorrow to get it lifted. In order to have a hearing, we have to file motions, give notice to the state, and generally the minimum notice requirement is 3 days, unless we could get the state to waive notice. Uh, but generally, you're talking a week before we could get that hearing. And so, yes, it is possible that you could be homeless for that week, right? If that's the situation that you find yourself in. And of course, no one wants to see that, but that is what happens. And so, the best advice I can give you is follow that restraining order conditions uh, to the T. It's in writing and you have it. Do the person who has the restraining order or who is listed as the victim does not have the legal authority to waive the restraining order. So if it's your spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, they can't say, hey, it's okay, just come on over, I won't say anything. They may mean that, but the problem is if something happens, if the police encounter you and look in the system and see that you have a restraining order, then you're going to jail or you're going to have your bond revoked, even if the other person didn't want that, because you were the subject of this restraining order. So, a lot of, it happens a lot, and it happens many times without the knowledge or without the request of the victim in the case. And, many people want to know why. And the obvious answer is the state thinks that they are protecting their victim. So, the state is worried that if someone is arrested because of someone else called the police, like I said, their spouse, lover, whatever it is, brother, sister. The state is afraid that the person who got arrested may be so angry that they'll get out of jail and immediately go commit another act of violence against that person. So they feel like they need legal protection for that person. My problem with that is I don't know why they do it when people don't request it. It just doesn't make sense to me. If the victim doesn't want a restraining order, then the state shouldn't be stepping in and trying to manage their relationship for them, is the way that I see it. But, state of Texas doesn't ask me. But yeah, it'll tell you can't communicate with them. They're very specific. So that means don't call, don't text. And the problem with calls and text is there's evidence. That person's phone now has texts from you. And if they desire, they can go to the DA and say, look, he or she is still contacting me. Here's the proof on my phone. You can see all the texts and calls that he or she's been making to me. And then you're in trouble. So, about, like I said, the best thing I can say is just follow the written order to the best of your ability. If there are things that in the order that are making your life extremely difficult, like you're homeless and you can't afford to stay somewhere else, get with your attorney and have your attorney return to court and amend it or change it, or we can make changes to the things that you need. Many times I get the situation where my client can afford to stay outside of the house, but they still have to have some type of contact because they have children together. And so we go to court and we make those adjustments. Just until we can do that, just obey the order. And then as soon as you tell me there's a problem and we need to fix it, we'll go to court and get it fixed. Don't take it upon yourself to make an agreement with the other person. We'll just do this and don't say anything, because again, it's not that person's choice. If police find out that you violated the order, you will be arrested, and you don't want that. So again, just follow the order. Last week, Joshua asked me a question, and it was about section 2503 of the Penal Code, which is interference with child custody. And Joshua, if you're watching, the answer to your question, which was basically why isn't it enforced and why don't the police make arrests for this, I suppose the answer is out of ignorance. And I don't mean that the police are ignorant. I mean, this is not a commonly charged offense. So the officers that are responding are likely to think, oh, this is just a family law matter. They need to work it out in family court. So, Joshua, if this is happening to you, then I think what you need to do is, if the police are not taking action when you call, if someone is interfering with your child custody, then I would begin to make video evidence. If possible, I would have a witness with me and have them video what's going on. For misdemeanors, which it is a misdemeanor, the police don't have to call the DA intake to find out, don't have to call DA intake to get charges made on a misdemeanor. This can be a felony. I just saw that. But anyway, but there is an intake DA always at the DA's office, so that if you're repeatedly being subject to some type of interference with your child custody and you have a witness getting, again, video proof, the best evidence that you can document, you could take that to the DA's office and hopefully have them accept charges if the police won't help you. The other option, Joshua, I might say, is to carry a copy of it with you, and whenever what happens, and you call the police, have them come out and show it to them and say, look, here's the statute, this is what it says, and this is what they're doing to interfere with my child custody. And then hopefully the officer would be more responsive. But again, I think it is not that Galveston County does not want to enforce this matter. I think that the officers that are responding probably just aren't very familiar with this and think that it's just a family law issue and y'all can work it out in family court. But if you help educate the officer that it is indeed a violation, then that may help you. So I hope, Joshua, that answered your question. If not, hit me back, email me or something, and I'll try to get with you and give you some more information. I had another question, which, what are the most common crimes in Galveston County? And I can't, that's a hard question to answer. Drugs are going to be at the top. DWIs are, so some things like DWIs spike up on holiday weekends and during the summer months because of all the tourists and people on the beach. Then there are other times when DWIs are kind of slow because not much is happening on the island, more like in the off-season months. Drugs are always, it's year-round. Drug charges, possession charges, manufacturing and delivery charges. A lot of assault cases, misdemeanor assault, mostly the family violence type. That happens a lot. Again, there's also a spike of that during the tourist season for the same reason as the DWI. People are drinking all day on the beach, and things tend to happen when there's alcohol involved. So that spikes a lot. It's really hard to pick one crime at any time that is the most common here in Galveston County, unless you just nail drugs, because it's always there. Others fluctuate up and down depending upon what's going on the island at the time. And I don't just mean tourism. I mean, we went through a period a while back where there were a bunch of burglary of motor vehicle cases, but there were so many, it appeared to be a group of people, and they did make an arrest. That it was those suspected defendants that were breaking into a bunch of cars. So there for a while it seemed like BMVs were being reported every night, but that was one group targeting the island. So at that time it would have seemed like BMVs were up on the island, but it was really probably just that one group that was responsible. And then those of you that read the daily news or even see it on Facebook in the various island groups, we had for a while we had a problem with catalytic converter thefts. Either that has slowed down or it's just not being reported. But again, for a while that, made it look like theft cases were going to be higher. But again, that's just related to something going on the island at the time. Just like arrests are always up over a holiday weekend, a 3-day weekend, you'll see more arrests. And when I say they're basically more alcohol related, whether it be public intoxication, DWI, there are just a lot more arrests on holiday weekends because there are so many people here. But the one case that's prevalent all the time is going to be possession of a controlled substance. So what are the most common crimes in Galveston County? It'll be involving drugs. Obviously that's unfortunate, but that's, kind of where we are. So that's about all I got for today. Sorry I had to make it short. I'm leaving the office here shortly. Y'all have a good rest of your week, and I'll see y'all next Tuesday.